the government should not be getting involved in our food choices. And that's really what the story is about. That's also why it resonates with people, because if we don't have the freedom to decide what we eat and what we feed our family, what freedom do we have left?
Good morning, Give, Send, Go, Shine Brightly podcast listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are around the world. We want to thank you for being a part of the Shine Brightly community, where we get to shine brightly as an organization, but also interview people who are shining brightly within their community, making a difference in the world using the Give, Send, Go platform. Oftentimes, not always. We do some podcasts with people that aren't using the Give, Send, Go platform, but today we have someone who is. And so I'm excited to be able to talk to Chris. We briefly chatted before we hopped on here, and but didn't really get to find out much about Chris personally. I gave a couple details about my life, but Chris, to begin, I'd be interested to know a little bit about you. I'm reading through your campaign. Again, for those that are listening, the campaign is right off the bat, givesendgo.com/support Amos Miller. That's the campaign URL, givesendgo.com/support Amos Miller. So you can hop on and read about the campaign there. It looks to be have been a successful and ongoing campaign. But Chris, why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit about who you are, where you came from, where you're from, just some of the background details.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Jacob. Pleasure to be here. Really love what you guys are doing over there at Give, Send, Go. So yeah, I'm a resident of Pennsylvania. I live in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, home of, the Amish, very well known for the Amish community here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I was born and raised a little bit east of here in eastern Pennsylvania. And what I've been doing for the last couple of years, I had been working for the Lancaster Patriot, which started as a print newspaper and has now transitioned to an online media platform. And so we do a lot of, when we can, podcasts, interviews, trying to shine light on what's going on in the county, what's going on in Pennsylvania. And we seek to do that from a Christian worldview. We seek to apply the Bible to all of life. But yeah, I'm just otherwise a normal guy here trying to raise a family. I've been married to my wife for 15 years. We love spending time with our church, spending time with our family. And we love the community here, which really ties into this campaign, which we'll get to. We love the fact that we can meet the farmers in the county, some of them Amish, some of them not, that we buy our food from. And it's just, we love being able to serve our neighbors and be served by our neighbors, with them doing what they've been gifted to do, whether that's raising crops or whatever it is. We love the community here, and we love being here in Lancaster County. And that's why some of the things that have been happening have been, very concerning for us. But we'll get to those in a moment, I'm sure. But that's a little bit about me. Just really enjoy family time and church time.
Awesome. Well, it's really cool. I don't know if this is in Lancaster County or not, but I know it's somewhere near. Each year, or at least for the past several years, Give, Send, Go has been a sponsor at a festival, a music festival out there. It's in September. It's called Uprise Fest. It's a pretty big festival, 7,000 to 10,000 people on a given year. We bring our team in, and we have an amazing time getting to know the people in that area. What we can see as an organization when we're there, just at the event, very much the things that you described. Community-driven people that are salt of the earth, I would say, type of people that are engaged in their community, are engaged in agricultural endeavors. Oftentimes, there seems like a big contingency of farmers and agricultural type of activity happening there where we go. So it's been a fun experience for us to take our team and go to Pennsylvania and kind of see that area. It sounds like, I think it's nearby to you somewhere. Just to back up one step, you mentioned that you know of Give, Send, Go, that you're thankful for our platform, what we're standing for. I'm curious how you first heard of Give, Send, Go in your journey. I know we try to market some way. Sometimes we've just been in the news because of something, but I'd be curious to hear about how you first heard of Give, Send, Go.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if I can pinpoint the exact moment, but I was aware of GoFundMe, I guess is kind of the big competitor. And a couple of years ago, early on at the Lancaster Patriot, I did do a little research, and I think I reached out to someone there and was just really impressed with your platform and the way you're doing it. And you would know those details better than me, but an alternative to GoFundMe, which, as far as I understand, is not coming from any sort of Christian perspective. Give, Send, Go, just a totally different feel. I mean, in many different ways. One, I mean, just the option where you see to pray for the campaign, where you have, I think, team members over there at Give, Send, Go that are willing to pray for these campaigns that people are, creating and raising awareness for. Just the customer service as well. And it's just a completely different feel. It's much more personal. Obviously, there's that spiritual element, if you will, that to me, I was drawn to it right away and say, these are the kind of companies, ministries, services that I want to support, that I want to be part of. I've been involved as just someone who's donated to multiple campaigns through Give, Send, Go. It's been growing. We have people in the church who've used it. One church member's child was going through a very difficult journey with cancer, and it's been a tool that's been used to help that family, to share updates, obviously raise funds, to raise awareness for prayer. So everything I've seen from Give, Send, Go has been a real encouragement and an alternative to the status quo, or, I don't really know much about GoFundMe, but I know this, they don't have that perspective and that vision that Give, Send, Go has. And so, 10 times out of 10, I'm going to Give, Send, Go.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's super cool to hear that this isn't even the only campaign that you've been involved in. And we are super grateful for people like you who continue to help us raise awareness about our platform. Our vision as a company is to be the global leader. Look, the household name that is the default platform that people use. And we see that happening. We're now in 85 countries around the world, very excited about what's going on. But in that Christian ethos of who Give, Send, Go is, our mission is to share hope with people, because we realize that in the difficulty of the world that we live in, as evidenced by the campaign that you have, money's a great way to help meet some of the material needs, but there are things bigger than just the tangible, physical, material needs that we have. People have emotional, spiritual needs, and they need some hope in the midst of difficulty. And so things like our prayer button, our prayer team, are ways that we can engage with our customers on that side of the equation, where I think all of our competitors, none of them engage in that way. They're all just, so it's all about the money. And it's like, well, no, there's things bigger than money. So, and I'm not going to make this about Give, Send, Go. There's a resonating with the things that you said about who we are and what we stand for. And we'll continue to stand for those ideas in the marketplace, and be a beacon of hope and freedom for people, even people that we disagree with, because I believe the best way forward in engaging people and even growing as an individual is engaging with people that I don't agree with. Like that's how I grow. So, and I'm sure you recognize that as well. But
can I add something to that real quick, Jacob?
Sure.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand, what Give, Send, Go offers is a breath of fresh air when it comes to the spiritual side. But people also need to understand, having a platform like this is very important. A successful business, a successful service that can be there, because a lot of people think, well, it doesn't really matter. We got GoFundMe over here or whatever. We don't necessarily need Give, Send, Go, but as you mentioned, there's always going to be opposition to the light. There's going to be opposition to spreading hope. And if a platform like Give, Send, Go doesn't exist, then we might be left with simply a GoFundMe or another platform that will censor those who are promoting righteous causes. And that's why it's important for me. I want to see Give, Send, Go succeed because I want them to be there when my community needs them. And people need to think that way. We need to think long term. How can we be a force for good in the world?
You're paying attention, and I like that, Chris, because so many people, and I understand the reality of life. We just get in the routine of the things that we need to do. And I was actually just going over a leadership lesson with our team about the urgent always screams louder than the important. And so we're always dealing with the urgent and not dealing with the important that actually moves us ahead. And I think that even as Christians, as people that exist, it's all the urgent things that take all of our attention, but we don't actually give our attention to the important things that actually move us into the place that we need to be as a society, as a culture. And it is important for people to look at companies like Give, Send, Go and say, hey, we need to get behind this, because you look at what particularly GoFundMe has done, and pretty much all the other crowdfunding platforms that there are not that many out there, they have shut down completely legitimate campaigns that are helpful for the strengthening the fabric of our society, like just completely undermining everything that we believe as Christians, but also that we believe even as Americans about our ideals of justice and freedom and the ability to debate ideas in the public space, even contentiously to some extent, with rigor. And it's been disastrous. And I think we've seen it now over the past couple of years, and I'm glad that God positioned us in the place that we're at. But I love this point of topic and conversation, but I also really want to talk about your campaign. I mean, I'm looking at it, nearly $300,000 raised, incredible, from close to 4,000 donors, shared over 1,000 times, nearly 2,000 people sending prayer messages. This is quite incredible, the scope, the magnitude of this campaign, how successful it's been. So there's a couple of reasons why campaigns have success like this. And one of them is you have somebody who's a major influence that is pushing something. But the other aspect of is there's something in the campaign story that resonates with people. From the bit I know, and again, direct people to givesendgo.com/support Amos Miller. You can read about the campaign there. Why don't you give a little bit of background to the campaign, the funds, the fundraising effort, what's actually the money's being raised for, how that is working out, what the cause is? I mean, it's really resonated with people, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned two things there. Either you have a major influence or just a captivating story. I'll tell you in this one, definitely the latter. I'm certainly not a major influencer. Amos Miller is an Amish farmer. He's well known within his buying network, but nationally, prior to a few years ago, he wasn't well known. But this is a story that captivates people, grabs their attention because it's such a visceral thing. For those that don't know, Amos Miller, as I mentioned, is an Amish farmer here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. His father before him was a farmer. I think his grandfather before him. Honest as they come, hardworking as they come, raising his own animals, helping other farmers in his network, get the product to the consumer. Now, what Amos Miller provides to his customers is something that they really, really want and is very hard to find, and that is meat, dairy, eggs, vegetables that has been produced outside of the governmental agricultural industry, pharmaceutical industry network. I mean, this is complete. I mean, when you talk about freedom and there's that passage in the Old Testament talking about, every man will sit under his own fig tree and there'll be this prosperity. And this is the ideal of, the American freedom, where you have the freedom to grow your own food. And I have the freedom to go to my neighbor and buy it from him. I don't need a government involved in that. I can make the choice that if I need this food for my health, and many of Amos's customers for years have been going to him because they can't get this natural food anywhere else. Just to jump ahead real quick here, I sat in a courtroom here in Lancaster County and heard testimony from people from all over the nation saying, I can't get this food anywhere else. And I get it from Amos Miller. I drive hours to get there. I pay to get it shipped out to my state because I need this. My child needs this for their health. And that's why this is. Now, what happened was Amos Miller has been under attack by the federal government and the state government for years now, simply because he offers an alternative to the grocery store agricultural model. I got no problem with going to the grocery store. When I go there, it takes me forever to find something, but I got no problem with the grocery store. We should have the freedom to go to the grocery store and buy the products from the big box company. That's fine. But we should also have the freedom to drive down the road and buy a gallon of milk, a gallon of raw milk, or just milk. We shouldn't even call it raw, natural milk from my Amish neighbor. We should have that freedom. And unfortunately, the government of the United States of America, the state of Pennsylvania in this case, are at war with those principles of liberty and freedom that are based on a Christian worldview, that are based on this idea of service. We are called to glorify God and serve our neighbor. And what Amos Miller has been doing for years is serving his neighbor. He's been providing a product to his neighbor that his neighbor wants, that his neighbor makes an informed decision to buy, and that helps his neighbor. There's not been one case of any customer of Amos Miller's going to the civil magistrate, going to the government and saying, you know what, I want to bring a lawsuit against Amos Miller because his products have harmed me. That has not happened. What happened here instead is that the government said, wait a minute, Amos Miller is selling products, and you know what? He's not following all our bureaucratic rules. And if he wants to serve his neighbor, he has to do it our way. And what people need to understand, there's a lot there, philosophical, biblical, but just from the practical perspective, when the government gets involved in our food choices, it comes with stipulations. Something that may seem as benign as, well, if you're going to sell that chicken, you need to have it washed in this sort of citric acid or this other solution, this other agent. And Amos Miller's customers said, well, no, we don't want our meat like that. We want to choose how we want our meat processed. And the government says, no, you don't get to make that choice. So to sum this up, just an introductory to the story, Amos Miller, he was raided in the past by the federal government. He had to really jump through a bunch of hoops, pay thousands and thousands of dollars to get the federal government off his case. This was a couple of years ago. We covered this. If you go to LancasterPatriot.com, you can see all that story. But then what just happened again, right when you think, okay, Amos has a breather here, surely we have more important things to focus on in this country than an Amish farmer selling products, and never once has had a customer complain saying, this food has caused me harm. But the state of Pennsylvania said, well, now that's not good enough. We're going to go after Amos Miller now for selling milk. And so they raided his farm. They raided his farm. State troopers went on his property. They had a search warrant, went through his farm operation, went through his office, went through his papers, just a horrible display of injustice, and said, well, look, you know what we're going to do now? We're going to detain all your food. We're going to tell you you're not allowed to sell basically anything to your neighbors. And for the American people, that was just too much. We see what's going on in our nation. We see that justice isn't being done to murderers and rapists, and we see all this stuff happening. And now we're using the resources which are taken from us via taxation to go and prosecute an Amish farmer. And that's why this story really resonated, because in many ways it highlights everything that is wrong with the justice system in America. One, we have the wrong standard. We're using man's standard instead of God's for what is just. We've created this bureaucracy, this system of rules and regulations, and it prevents people from loving neighbors. So Amos was basically out of business for months. The government said, you can't sell anything. And that's kind of what started this fundraiser.
Wow. What an incredible story of, it's kind of like a focal point to the crux of many of the issues that we see in society today. It's like this is a microcosm of the big picture of the tension or the wrestling in the war that's happening between how we view what what Americanism is and what really was the foundation for what America was, which were these principles that were derived not from human invention, but from a recognition of a creator and his design in the way of the world and the virtues that he expresses for us to live by. Really, really incredible. So I see that there have been many updates, like this has progressed. So what's the latest in this siege and in this situation that's going on between him and the state? What's the latest in this whole situation as far as where they're at? I think I remember reading some things, and I do believe that it's Barnes Law that has been representing Amos Miller, and that they did have some success in the courts as far as providing some relief to Amos and his clients. Is that the case?
To try to summarize where we're at now, just in a nutshell, this is an ongoing thing, and there have been some, I guess you could say, small wins. I think the frustrating thing for me is that right now it seems like the state government is kind of driving this train. So they came and said to a judge, "Hey, listen, we need Amos Miller. We need you to tell him that he's not allowed to sell his dairy products anywhere." And I think the victory in that case was the judge says, "Well, I'm going to say you can't sell them in Pennsylvania. You can still sell them, across state lines." But this is a developing thing. The lawsuit, what just so people understand, the state government is trying anything they can to shut Amos down. And what they did is they filed a civil lawsuit against him. It's not a criminal. This is a civil lawsuit.
Wow.
And the plaintiffs in this lawsuit they're not customers. So when we think about justice, we think about, what the role of a judge should be. It should be that if you've wronged me, Jacob, I go to the magistrate and say, "Look, Jacob's wronged me. I need restitution." That's the biblical idea of justice. The prophet Jeremiah talks about justice between a man and his neighbor. If you've wronged me or if I've wronged you, let's get justice established here. But what happens in America is we have the state of Pennsylvania saying Amos Miller has wronged us. Now, wait a minute. The state of Pennsylvania, you're not a consumer of Amos Miller's. You're not buying his products. How has he wronged you? So this is it's lawfare. It's not justice. It's the state saying, well, here's an avenue we can use to go after Amos. We're going to say we're the plaintiff. He's wronged us. Why? Because he has not followed our man-made code and regulation. So there's much more there, but the thing is, the civil lawsuit is just beginning. And what the state of Pennsylvania wants to do is bleed Amos dry. They want to play the long game, the war of attrition, just continue to hit him over and over again with injunctions, with mandates, until he can't function anymore. And that's why one of the reasons, I know we don't have a ton of time, but how has this fundraiser helped Amos? It's helped him and his family and his employees, and there's still been hardship there because they've basically been prevented from making a profit or severely hampered for months. And so this is not over yet. And my prayer and what I would ask people to pray for is that there would not just be kind of a tip of the hat to Amos is, okay, Amos, we'll let you do this, but you still have to follow everything. This is an ideological battle. And I think if Americans don't realize, hey, the government should not be telling us what we can and can't eat, it's going to be a loss. And I know that's,
Right.
not necessarily what people want to hear, but I think we need to be realistic so we know what to work for here, that the government should not be getting involved in our food choices. And that's really what the story is about. That's also why it resonates with people, because if we don't have the freedom to decide what we eat and what we feed our family, what freedom do we have left?
Right. No, I mean, it's fundamental to being alive. Is like one of the necessities of life is your food, and it's part of the way that the world operates. You should be in control of such a fundamental necessity to your existence, and without interference from the government, for sure. So again, let me just point people to checking out the Give, Send, Go campaign, givesendgo.com/support Amos Miller. You all can go there, check it out, share the campaign, continue. It's an ongoing, according to you, Chris, it sounds like it's a continuing, ongoing situation. So support is still needed for Amos, his family, his employees, the people that are involved in this, the legal fight. So you can go there, you can support the campaign by giving, for sure, but also by sharing the campaign, raising awareness, and by praying for it. We realize at Give, Send, Go that there is life in the things that we say. This is a biblical concept that life and death are in the power of the words that you say. And it's important to be praying and speaking life into situations that you see need that. So that's another option for you there with that pray option on the campaign page. Are there other places that you would want to direct people to take a look at? They can go to the campaign page. Are there any other places you could say, well, you can find out more, there's a website here, or there's a social media page here, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people can go to thelancasterpatriot.com/help Amos. There's a link there to the Give, Send, Go link. There's also articles, podcasts, interviews with local people, local pastors. This has really brought the community together in some sense. There was a big rally for Amos outside a local courthouse in February. So the LancasterPatriot.com/help Amos. You get a bunch of resources there. And yeah, this is ongoing. It's not over yet. There's some good news, but there's also still a lot of obstacles here, a lot of concerns, because it does not appear that the state of Pennsylvania wants to back down here. If they let Amos Miller win this, then it's a huge blow to their bureaucracy and tyranny. Because one of the things real quick that you'll hear from those that are against Amos is, well, he just has to follow the rules like everyone else. Everyone else is following all the rules. And that's a lie. There are people, you understand that if we follow it all, you and I can never know every single government regulation. I mean, if I want to sell cookies to my neighbors, I'm probably breaking a law. There are farmers that are serving their neighbors, that are flying under the radar. That Amos Miller is the tip of the spear when it comes to food freedom, at least right here, right now. And if the state of Pennsylvania loses to him, it shows that their hold on this food tyranny is crumbling. And what I think they don't want people to understand is that it already is crumbling. There are dozens of Amos Millers out there who are serving their neighbors freely. Now, I just want to read one Bible verse here as I think we got to wrap up here. Proverbs 17:26, to impose a fine on a righteous man is not good, nor to strike the noble for their uprightness. So here's a man, Amos Miller, who's serving his neighbor righteously, and the magistrate has come in and imposed a serious fine on him. It's not good. And if the American people and if the state troopers and the Department of Ag employees don't have the moral compass to say, you know what, we're not going to prosecute or persecute this man who's doing something righteous. If the American people don't wake up to that, then we really have no hope here. So please, support the campaign. There's still going to be costs to Amos. Pray for him, but pray for our nation that we would wake up to the standard of justice that's in the Bible, and we would, protect those who are serving their neighbor. Because if we don't have the Amos Millers out there to serve us, what do we have? Is the government going to provide the food for us? I don't think that's a future we really want to contemplate.
Well spoken, and I think the recognition, or there definitely ought to be some recognition in light of those critiques, is that we recognize as a society that there have been and are continually unjust laws. So just because something might be on the books a certain way doesn't mean it's just, or that it ought to remain that way, for sure. And that there is a civic duty to push back against the unjustness in society. And that's fundamental to what makes a society like ours work, which is that we have the right to actually petition and come up to our government and say, no, this isn't right, that it is something for the people, by the people. But fantastic conversation, Chris. I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation, inform us about all that's happening with Amos Miller, your willingness to set up this campaign for him, the success that it's had. It's been incredible to see. Appreciate you using GiveSendGo for sure. Just to reiterate, you've got the LancasterPatriot.com/help Amos as a place that they can go. People can go, and actually these links are on the GiveSendGo page as well. So these resources are linked there in the GiveSendGo page. So for those that have jumped in late, GiveSendGo.com/support Amos Miller. With that, Chris, any last words before we sign off for the day?
I just want to thank you for having me. I want to encourage you in the work you're doing there, brother. And yeah, your work's been a huge blessing, obviously, to Amos Miller, to me, to many people. So keep at it, and may the Lord continue to bless what you're doing.
Thanks, brother. We'll talk later.
All right, take care.